Eala Ace's homecoming. Eala put on a show in her first ever professional tournament at home, rocking Russian rival Elena Kareva with a 6-1, 6-2 clinic before a jam-packed crowd last night in round 1 of the WTA 125 Philippine Women's Open at the New Look Rizal Memorial Tennis Center. The 20-year-old Filipina pride needed just 76 minutes for the runaway win against her WTA number 163 foe and thus remained, as expected, as the only Filipina standing in the 32-player main draw of this trailblazing tourney. Eala, WTA number 49, did it behind masterful closeouts, delivering a 5-0 finishing kick in the first and a 6-0 dagger from 0-2 in the second that led to a standing ovation from the adoring Filipino faithfuls. The second-seeded ace, who's the first Filipina to barge into the world's top 50, will face either number 140 Himeno Sakitsum or number 204 Nao Hibino, both from Japan, in round 2 tomorrow. Matagal ko na itong pinapangarap so gusto ko lang magpasalamat sa inyong lahat, beamed Eala. Playing home matches is like seeing my two worlds collide, Manila and the WTA Tour. It's a reflection of how far I and tennis here have come. Nothing compares to the feeling of playing in front of the Filipinos, so I will do my best and try to enjoy, she added. Eala, who was welcomed with cheers and chants just upon entering the center court, held all her serves in the first set and came out of a medical timeout in the third game of the second set with guns ablaze. From 1-2 down, Eala never yielded a game to a familiar opponent who beat her in their first encounter back in the 2020 ITF Spain, 6-3, 6-3. Eala last played at home as a junior in 2018. And she came back in style. Her win made up for the early exit of Filipino wildcards led by the country's second-ranked player and Thailand SEA Games bronze medalist Tenny Mighties. Inspired by a mammoth crowd at center court in the primer to Eala's duel, Mighties raced to a 2-0 start only to win just 2 games the rest of the way in a 6-4, 6-0 defeat to Manangkia Sawanki of Thailand, Eala Ace's homecoming. The plane touched down as if it understood the weight of the moment. Its wheels kissed the runway gently, reverently, like a bow. Outside, the sun stretched wide over the tarmac, the same sun that had watched her grow from a barefoot child chasing balls across cracked courts into a name spoken on foreign broadcasts. Alexandra Ace Eala was home. Home was louder than she remembered. It rushed at her the moment the airport doors opened, cheers bursting like fireworks, flags waving with restless hands, cameras blinking as if afraid to miss even a breath. The sound was not just noise, it was recognition. It was a country calling one of its own by name, syllable by syllable, heart by heart. Ace. She paused before stepping forward. For a second, she closed her eyes. She smelled warm air mixed with perfume and sweat, heard the uneven rhythm of clapping, felt the vibration of joy under her shoes. This was different from the applause of grand stadiums overseas, clean, controlled, polite. This applause was messy. This one leaned in close, shouted too loudly, cried openly. This one loved her. When she stepped out, smiles broke like dawn. They saw the trophies, the rankings, the headlines. But Ace felt the memories walk beside her, early mornings when the court was still wet with dew, her mother's voice counting drills, her father timing sprints, the sting of losing and the quiet strength of starting again. She remembered the sound of balls bouncing long after sunset, the hum of city life beyond the fence, and the dream that once felt too big for such a small girl. Now the dream had returned with her. A motorcade carried her through familiar streets, and she watched the city as if meeting an old friend after years apart. Buildings had grown taller. Billboards were brighter. Traffic was still stubbornly the same. She laughed softly at that. Some things, thankfully, never change. Children lined the roads holding homemade signs. Some were written in careful block letters, others in wild marker strokes that bled through cardboard. I want to be like Ace. She swallowed hard. That sentence landed heavier than any medal ever had. At the homecoming ceremony, she stood on stage while the crowd spilled across the plaza like an ocean. The microphone trembled slightly in her hand, not from fear, but from feeling too much at once. She spoke about gratitude, about family, about discipline and dreams. But between the words lived the truth she could not fully say. That every match she played abroad, every point she fought for, she carried this place with her. That when she stood alone on the baseline, she was never truly alone. The crowd roared anyway, as if they heard what her voice could not hold. Later, away from the lights, she returned to a small court where it all began. The paint was faded. The net sagged a little. The ground bore scars from years of play. It was imperfect and beautiful. She bounced a ball once. The sound echoed. This was where she learned that greatness does not arrive fully formed. It is built here, in repetition, in patience, in choosing to stay when quitting feels easier. She imagined the ghosts of her younger self running beside her, laughing, dreaming without limits. Ace took a slow practice swing, not to train, not to prove anything, but simply to remember. As the sky darkened, stars appeared one by one, like quiet witnesses. Tomorrow, she would return to the world stage. There would be more matches, more pressure, more miles away from home. But tonight she belonged entirely to this moment. Eala Ace had come home not just as a champion, but as a mirror, reflecting what is possible when talent meets sacrifice, when a nation dares to believe, and when a young girl refuses to let her dreams stay small. And somewhere in the crowd, a child gripped a tennis racket a little tighter, already imagining their own homecoming someday.